Trump's thinnest indictment ever against James Comey sparks fierce backlash and raises questions about justice system integrity. The political spotlight has turned once again toward Donald Trump and James Comey as a stunningly thin indictment shakes Washington. Billed as the thinnest federal indictment in history, this two-page filing accuses the former FBI director of making false statements and obstructing Congress, charges that rest entirely on a single line of testimony from 2017. With the Department of Justice under fire and Trump doubling down on his fight against longtime critics, the case raises urgent questions about political power, fear, and the integrity of America's justice system. Pulse News takes you inside the controversy, the evidence, and the wider implications that could reshape the debate on Trump's influence over the DOJ and the future of accountability in U.S. politics. The political landscape in the United States was jolted again this week after former FBI Director James Comey was indicted in what critics are calling the thinnest federal case in history. The indictment, stretching a mere 2 pages, rests on just 2 counts, both tied to the exact same testimony Comey gave before the Senate back in 2017. What this really means is that the Department of Justice under Donald Trump is now attempting to criminalize testimony that was already investigated, cleared, and validated by its own Inspector General. In short, the government's case seems built on air. But beyond the legal jargon, this episode exposes something much bigger: the growing weaponization of the justice system and how political power is being used to intimidate opponents. The indictment, 2 pages, 1 statement. At the core of the case are 2 charges: making a materially false statement to the Senate and obstruction of Congress. Both charges hinge on a single exchange during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on May 3, 2017. Senator Ted Cruz had pressed Comey about leaks from the FBI during the Trump and Clinton investigations. Comey, under oath, denied authorizing anyone to serve as an anonymous source. The prosecution now argues that this statement was false, pointing to Andrew McCabe, Comey's former deputy, who later admitted authorizing a leak to the Wall Street Journal. But the DOJ's own Inspector General already examined this issue years ago and concluded that it was McCabe, not Comey, who authorized the disclosure. In fact, the report explicitly states that Comey was telling the truth. So why is this indictment happening now? Comey's defiant response:
"Fear is the tool of a tyrant. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either."
Comey urged Americans to stay engaged, vote, and recognize that democracy itself depends on resisting political intimidation. This wasn't just a legal rebuttal, it was a rallying cry. The indictment also shines a light on Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, and a respected prosecutor. She played a leading role in the high-profile case against Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime accomplice in sex trafficking. According to reports, Maureen was abruptly fired under the Trump DOJ before Trump's personal lawyer, later made Deputy Attorney General, traveled to Florida to meet with Maxwell.
If a career prosecutor can be fired without reason, fear may seep into the decisions of those who remain. Do not let that happen. Fear is the tool of a tyrant.
Another unprecedented twist is Trump's own public behavior. Before the indictment was even official, Trump posted on social media declaring James Comey guilty as hell. The post was later deleted. Such statements can poison jury pools and compromise the fairness of a trial. Historically, presidents tried to avoid this interference. Richard Nixon once remarked that Charles Manson was guilty, and his team rushed a retraction to prevent mistrial claims. Trump has bulldozed through those conventions, making pronouncements no sitting or former president has ever dared. The DOJ Inspector General's findings: a hidden truth? The crux of the legal battle boils down to credibility. The report from 2018 says, Andrew McCabe authorized leaks to the Wall Street Journal, not James Comey. McCabe then misled Comey about it. McCabe even lied under oath multiple times before finally admitting he had authorized the disclosures. The glaring question is whether the grand jury in Virginia that issued the indictment was even shown this evidence. If they weren't, it raises serious concerns about prosecutorial misconduct and selective presentation of facts. This isn't just about James Comey, it's about precedent. If testifying truthfully under oath can still lead to an indictment, years after the fact, against the backdrop of political grudges, then no public servant is safe. Legal scholars warn that cases like this blur the line between justice and vengeance. They erode faith in the judiciary and open the door for political prosecutions to become normalized. The symbolism is unmistakable: a president using the legal system to pursue personal vendettas. Looking ahead, trial and public perception. Comey has demanded a trial, openly declaring his innocence. His confidence seems rooted not only in the facts of the case but also in the belief that the federal judiciary, despite political interference, will uphold the law. But even if he wins in court, the damage may already be done. Public trust in the DOJ has taken another hit. Polarization will deepen. The trial will likely hinge on whether the defense can force the government to acknowledge its own Inspector General's findings. If those reports are presented to a jury, the case could collapse quickly. If not, Comey faces an uphill battle. Here's the thing. This indictment isn't really about paperwork or Senate testimony, it's about power. Who has it, how it's used, and how far a leader can go in bending institutions to his will. For Trump, this is a continuation of a long campaign to discredit those who opposed him during the Russia investigation and beyond. For Comey, it's a test of resilience and principle. And for Americans, it's a stark reminder that democracy requires constant vigilance. Fear spreads quickly when people in power wield it recklessly. But resistance, as Comey put it, comes from staying engaged and refusing to kneel. At the end of the day, this indictment is bigger than James Comey. It's a test of the rule of law in America. Stay with Pulse News for the latest updates, expert analysis, and in-depth reporting on this unfolding story that could reshape the future of American democracy.